What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Real Talk NFT, where we talk all things Web3. I am super excited to have on a special guest today, Suze, short for, hopefully I'm saying this correctly, Sulin Silbar, one of the most unique names I've ever, said. And you are in charge of partnerships manager. You're a partnerships manager of amberfi, and along with other NFT projects. You're a curator yourself. You do interviews yourself, weekly blog posts. You're a social media manager and community manager within the Expressions Marketplace. I could go on forever, but I'm just super excited to talk to you about all things Web3 and all things about amberfi and expression. So welcome on to the show.
Thank you.
Awesome. So for those of the listeners who do not know about expressions, amberfi, but before we get into that, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, how you got your Web3 inspiration?
Well, I came into Web3 via the crypto sort of currency boom, late 2020, with everybody else being at home with a little bit of extra money and a whole lot of time. I found myself going down into the crypto blockchain rabbit hole, which led me into NFTs and the whole Web3 ecosystem. And I was really moved by this opportunity to, I used to think level the playing field. I'm not so sure that I still feel that way, but I feel like it's an opportunity to bring underrepresented communities up to the playing field, basically.
I see. So you saw that through, of course, Web3 and NFTs. And how did you get involved? From the transition from crypto, were you collecting NFTs? Were you an artist yourself? How did you get inspired to kind of just show the underrepresented, spaces and kind of see this as an avenue for that?
Yeah. So I, prior to getting into crypto, I was a small business owner in health and wellness in New York City. And one of my goals was always to offer services to folks who couldn't necessarily afford it in New York City. So I had a huge sliding scale in my business so that people who could afford it had to pay a higher premium. But then it allowed me to give a heavily discounted price to school teachers, firefighters, people like that, who I felt like I knew needed the work but couldn't necessarily afford it. So that was always part of my ethos. And then through blockchain technology, I saw that this was an opportunity to really help educate and bring more folks from underrepresented communities into this ecosystem. And so it just carried through. That's just kind of how my brain has been wired. And so it just was a carryover.
Definitely. We definitely need more, different backgrounds within the space because, primarily, male-led, male-focused, and not even, and excitingly so, thankfully, creatives and artists are, drove kind of this NFT Web3 renaissance. So there's a couple moving parts here. Tell us a little bit about amberfi and expressions and how that kind of cohesively works together.
All right. Well, amberfi was started by some folks in California, in Silicon Valley, and they were creators and the two main co-founders. One is a creator and the other was a Web2 builder. And they came together and started amberfi. And basically, they were looking at the Web3 space at the time and saw an opportunity to start building in Web3 and to focus on underrepresented communities, basically.
I see. And I see that they create specifically Web3 marketplaces, or maybe that's just one thing that they do, right? And that's where expressions comes into place.
Yeah, I mean, so amberfi is sort of like the parent company, and that is a software company. I mean, they are building technology, and the marketplace is what is really where the focus is, at least for right now. So, building the bones for marketplaces so that different brands can come in and start having their own marketplaces. Creators can create their own marketplaces, sort of making the skeleton, and then you can slap the skins on how you like it. And so, it's a hybrid of B2B and B2C is kind of their background. And I came onto the project about 7 months ago. And have been building, and really my job has been the face. I am the face of Expressions Marketplace out in social media land.
Yeah, I see that there's a lot of social sites that you guys are on. And you wear many hats I saw, but mainly you're the social media manager and community manager, engaging with people on a day-to-day. Is that correct?
Correct. Yep. And curating also. I mean, a big part of that is curating as well.
Yeah, I've seen that you definitely curated some partnerships even, and wearing so many hats. Like, what excites you most about Web3 or Expressions?
Well, for me, at Expressions, I see it as an opportunity to change a creator and a collector's experience for buying and selling art. I mean, I look at it as, Expressions is not really for PFP projects, are really focused on one-of-one creators. Right now, it's mostly, visual art, but, we want to get into word and music, kind of really start to grow what can be on our marketplace. But it's an opportunity to get unique artists from underrepresented communities, give them an opportunity to be showcased, highlighted, and on our marketplace. And then the flip side of that is also finding collectors who are looking for to really grow their collections and less of the flipping kind of mentality.
No, absolutely. I understand exactly where you're coming from, because coming into Web3 and NFTs myself, I wasn't a art collector per se, but I've seen myself thrown into that far end of the pool and started to collect art more so than prior to Web3. And this is a very interesting time within the space. How are you finding artists, number one, and also collectors right now? Are they embracing like, hey, I want to start a one-of-one collection? Of course, if you're going to expand my horizons, number one, or maybe help me with skill sets and expose me to a new audience, or they're like, oh, NFT Web3 art, I don't want to touch that. How are you finding that right now?
Well, it's a mix. I think that for the creatives, especially creatives from underrepresented communities that don't necessarily have a whole lot of opportunities to get showcased and highlighted on marketplaces, they look at this as a great opportunity for them and for their careers. And the collectors, it's a little bit tricky because part of it is hard to identify collectors. Like a lot of them are not on social media, or if they are, it's very light. They're mostly looking. They're not really engaging. Like they look on social media, I think, to find the art, but they're not necessarily engaging. So identifying who the collectors are is a bit of a research mission, and so I spend a lot of time trying to find who are the collectors who aren't amplifying that they're collectors. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely makes sense. Well, a little bit, I need it, for me, it's because I'm not an art collector per se, and I am connecting more so now, talking about what type of NFTs I like or art that I like. But definitely, to your point, there's the major collectors out there, or the more so art collectors out there. They probably, or it sounds like they need to be more vocal. It seems like they're just quietly collecting, and maybe more in the traditional world, they're more vocal, right? Yeah, definitely. And being a marketplace, I have to ask this question because definitely you want to reward your underrepresented artists or just artists in general. Royalties are enforced, right? Because there's this whole debacle or debate right now about royalties.
That's right. Yes, we enforce royalties. We offer a couple of different options for the creatives. Like they can mint from their own contract, or they can mint from a variety of contracts that we already offer to them. So that they could be in control. That's one of the things that I think is really great that we offer, but we definitely enforce royalties. They can choose to encrypt their NFT, which means that you can't sell it on a different marketplace. But if you do mint it on your own contract, you would still have control over that NFT. Like, say, God forbid, that expressions folded, at some point, but you still had NFTs on there. If it was on your contract, you would still have control over them. They wouldn't be lost. So we give a lot of control to the creators.
Definitely. There's got to be a hurdle there as well for for artists coming on board. But thankfully, you guys are there to kind of hold their hand. And you're right, because of blockchain, a lot of the artwork, which is great, it's immutable, more so than, the traditional markets where, maybe, God forbid, something happens like a fire per se, right? Then the art's gone. But on the blockchain, it's kind of there forever, which is great. And has there been any discussions about Bitcoin NFTs? And the reason I bring this up is because recently there was a project that kind of switched out the pictures on their collection. And just curious because it's supposedly on Bitcoin, it's more immutable. Once it's on there, it's on there, right? But it can only support a certain type or format or a file size for now. Maybe songs and videos not there quite yet. Just curious on what you guys have thought about that at all, because I know that's kind of like an up and coming hot news topic.
Yeah, I mean, at the moment, that is, we want to be multi-chain down the road. Right now, we're minting on Polygon and therefore also accessible with Ethereum. But down the road, possibly. I'm not a developer. I'm not a developer, so I can't say what that looks like. But I know that we have talked about being multi-chain down the road, continue building and including other chains.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, definitely. That's something that's just developing. So, and the news that just happened a week ago where they really upsetted a lot of the community members. Imagine you bought an NFT and the art completely changed. That's like completely bonkers.
Yeah, I agree. I think that there's a lot of, so one of the things that we're doing is we're also verifying. So, in order to use a credit card, you have to verify. And so that is one step along the way that sort of takes away a little bit of that uncertainty in the NFT world of, you have to be verified. So you have to actually sort of document yourself in order to use a credit card. Now, if you just want to use your Ethereum or Matic based wallet, you don't have to verify, so you still could be undoxed in that respect. But one of the things that we want to bring to the marketplace is this idea that if you verify yourself, it's less likely that you're going to get scammed or rugged. We're trying to make it so that there's more security on our marketplace than any other marketplace that exists right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Scams within Web3, because it's new, is rampant right now. But I'm pretty sure that's going to get underneath control. We're still in the very, very early days. So, thank you guys for doing that, because verification is for at least in the onset of NFTs, everyone was undocumented. So definitely now, everyone should be verified, like you said. You've been in the space for a while now, since last year, and working with the company for a while. What's been your biggest takeaway with either working with the different communities that are collectors or even artists or even collaborations, partnerships? What's kind of the biggest learning lesson that you've had with all this time underneath your belt?
Well, that's a whole lot of question in one. Can you
yeah.
Can you break that down for me a little bit?
Yeah, just kind of the biggest learning lesson. And the reason I asked that, because I asked this to a lot of business owners or even projects, because right when they start the project, they kind of have a vision of what they want to do, or like their success of 2023 or 2022, and it kind of differs sometimes because they hear community feedback or artist feedback or collective, and it kind of changes. Not the directive completely, but it's slightly different than when they first joined the space. And I was just curious, when you first worked with either amberfi, expressions, what if there's any feedback that's really a biggest takeaway, a big learning lesson that's kind of not change a game plan, but just something that you've learned and taken away?
Well, first of all, that's a great question, and thank you. I really think that for me, again, I came in as the community manager, and then things just kept growing, more and more responsibilities, as is sort of normal in startup culture. And one of the things that I personally had to overcome was, we were the new kids on the block as far as marketplaces were going. And so when I came in, this was fall last year, folks were a little hesitant to be open to, signing up to be on our marketplace, which also included some free press in some ways. I mean, I was interviewing and showcasing artwork for any of the artists that would come on board. And I was getting, my first month or so, I was getting a lot of hesitancy from creatives because they didn't know who we were and they wanted to see what did we really stand for. Mm-hmm. And so sort of had to come up with a game plan of like, how do we convince these creatives who are already on a multitude of marketplaces trying to sell their art, how do we convince them that we are a new marketplace and that they should be a part of our family? And so that was a place where I had to kind of figure out what is my approach versus just being like, hey, we're this new marketplace and we're so awesome, we're going to do all these amazing things for you. And so I had to really come up with a game plan of how to convince them, and that included then going a little bit deeper into amberfi and looking at what was being built under the hood, and how was that going to turn into an actual plan, like a business plan, and how I could actually say to the artist, like, here's what we're building. These are the different aspects that we are building out that are going to be different than anywhere else. And so that was sort of a big growth for me personally, was having to look at the tech side, because I'm not a tech person, right? Mm-hmm. I know enough to do what I need to do, but I had to be able to get into the conversation with the developers and learn about what was actually being built versus just like, we're cool, we're doing this thing, we're community driven. Like I had to get the actual facts.
Right. And interesting that the artists, that they're probably hearing from your voice, they're probably interested in those kind of like facts and rollouts and things that could benefit them.
Yeah, absolutely. They wanted to know. I mean, I had a number of artists that I approached. They said like, oh, I'm already on a couple different marketplaces, but I really loved their art and I really wanted to interview them. Like personally, I thought they would be a great match for the marketplace. And so I had to learn, about what it is that we're offering that's different than anybody else is offering.
Understood. Yeah, definitely. There's so many out there, like you mentioned. But I don't think none that's very specifically focus driven like expression is for, representation. And being a new marketplace, I see that you guys have a Genesis drop. Is that occurring or has that already happened?
So we're actually launching on May 1st, and that Genesis drop is part of our launch, and that's called Origins and Ancestries. And that is going to be an ongoing theme, and where we're focusing on different regions of the world. And then we find an ambassador in that region to help locate artists. And one of the things that I love is that we're onboarding artists that are traditional artists into the Web3 world and into NFTs. So, quite a few of these artists in this Origins and Ancestries drop are not NFT artists. I mean, this will be their first foray into NFTs. So we're onboarding artists, and this region is the Caribbean. And so we have some really amazing art coming out of the Caribbean that hasn't really been showcased before. So super exciting for that. And that's part of our May 1st launch.
That's awesome. So I see here that there's 11 artists from the Caribbean, and most, like you said, are probably not NFT artists per se, but getting their first exposure to it. I'm sure the lines are going to get closer and closer between traditional and just, NFT art. But for now, that everyone's kind of new to it. That's awesome. And you said different regions coming about maybe, every month, every quarter.
That's right.
That's something. So that's something that, individuals like myself, if we wanted to support, we can go onto the website and support. It's not necessarily like an auction or anything like that. We just go on there and buy it.
Well, so with the Origins and Ancestries drop, it's going to be a 2-day auction. So,
it is. Okay, awesome.
Yeah, it is. There will be some buy nows, but it's going to be a 2-day affair, and some of the art will be auction only, and some of it will be buy now, and it's kind of split into 2 days. So we're separating, but there's going to be art from each artist both days. So it's 1,000 pieces. It's 1,000-piece collection. So it'll be, around 500 on the first day and another 500 on the second day that will get released and be open for bidding. And also the buy now feature will be part of that. And then on top of that, we also are going to have the artists that I've been curating over the past 6 months also on the website that they'll just have their own collections up. And so those can and that's up to them if they want to do auction or buy now. That's up to the artist, but that will be separate. They will be on the website or on the marketplace, but they're not part of the Genesis drop, but their work will be available.
Awesome. Yeah. I see all that information on the website. I also see, were you at NFT NYC? I see there's maybe some collaborations there.
Yes. I was there, as was JD, who is one of the co-founders. We were both there.
Awesome. Interesting. Yeah. So there's definitely a QR code that links to, a certain allow list for, artists. I wish I was there. I was not at NFT NYC. I heard it was amazing. And hopefully you guys were well represented there.
I do want to just throw out there. So our second region that we're going to focus on, and that drop is going to happen this summer, is going to be in Africa. And there's some amazing art that's already coming out of Africa, but we have some exclusive artists that our ambassador has found, and super excited to be able to offer that up as well. So that's coming in the summer. That's our second drop of the Origins and Ancestries.
That's exciting. Seems like you have, a lot of creatives lined up and artists and art. We're going to see the artwork on there already. And this might be a little bit early to ask this question, but the impact that you've seen, have you seen any of that so far? Maybe we'll see more of that, after a couple of drops past Genesis, like major impacts to the artists. But have you seen any, changes maybe or wins so far, besides just getting the drops off the ground for the artists or even for yourselves?
Well, one of the things that I think has been really exciting, again, so I was sort of like a curator when I started in the fall, and seeking out artists who didn't necessarily have like the biggest followings, but that were doing something that was interesting and unique, and also amplifying underrepresented communities. So I was really looking for those sort of artists, and quite a few of those artists, signed up to be on our marketplace, and, we did the interview and showcasing their work. And in the last 6 months, I've watched those artists sort of start to get a lot more recognition, which has been really interesting to see that a number of the folks, that signed up and have been a part of the growth of Expressions Marketplace are now doing much better and are being featured on all sorts of different marketplaces and websites and competitions. I mean, they're doing quite well. So that makes me think, like, at least for me personally, I'm like, oh, you're curating the right people, because they're really blowing up in the last 6 months.
Wow. No, that's awesome. Yeah. You picked them, you found them, and then now they're doing well. So you're picking the right horses. That's amazing to see. Yes. And because that's just such a crowded space, and to have someone become successful, that's definitely a win, not only for them, but for you guys. And that leads me to my next question. You might not have to answer for this. I know I'm asking some interesting questions here. How do you get your message across in Web3? Because, it's so loud, whether it be Twitter or, Discord itself, a lot of things get messy or just lost. And there's so much art, like you say, in marketplaces, especially for underrepresented communities. Is there kind of like a strategy that you guys implement?
It is very noisy out here in the Web3 world. And, I feel like it's really right now really been a push on Twitter and Instagram. Also a little bit on LinkedIn, but I don't really feel like LinkedIn is necessarily the right place yet. It might change. Social media is constantly changing. Like yesterday, everybody was going crazy over Blue Sky. So it's like, oh, do we now jump into getting on Blue Sky just in case it's the next step in, social media for Web3? I don't know. I think that we do, releasing blog posts, getting on talk shows, on podcasts, doing Twitter Spaces, reaching out to different communities on Twitter and in Discord to get the message out that what we're doing. That's really been the main ways that we've been going about it. Does that answer the question?
Oh, no, definitely. Yeah, definitely. I don't think there's a silver bullet here or else everyone would be majorly successful in Web3. It's just it's such an burgeoning space. More curious on what's creative or interesting strategies work for specifically, underrepresented communities, because in this big space, underrepresented communities and minorities or different groups is probably, not heard that much. So just, interested on, different ways of getting the message across. So more so for our listeners to kind of take note and what, I should implement this strategy. But everything you said right there was definitely on point. Something I need to do more also.
Well, what's really interesting to me, Joe, is that, I really am my authentic self on Twitter, behind the Expressions Marketplace handle. And I just comment and start conversations with people, like creatives, collectors, whoever they are. Maybe they're just fans. I just start conversations. And if something looks to me like it's feminist art or it's Iranian art and it's about freedom for women and rights for people, I just start talking to them. And I feel like that is the true way to build an authentic audience and real connections with people. And so that's kind of where I'm at and how I go about it is really oh, look, I want to know more about this person or this art or what their thoughts are, and just engage with them from an authentic place. And then you usually get authenticity back. Yeah,
no, definitely. That's something that I've learned through social media, to be my authentic self, and getting authentic responses back is definitely, a win. And something that I wanted to share is that you guys are definitely doing meaningful work. And I think your messaging needs to be heard by a lot more people. I myself look for, companies or projects that, support that kind of all align with my philosophy. So it's great to, have you guys come through. It's super exciting to see, a lot more just different groups come into the space. So it's exciting. It means the space is maturing a little bit. Like you said, not just flippers or people coming in here with, all the fun stuff I have back here actually that I've been collecting. And it's good to see, actual art from actual people who one need it and also have, artistic creativity, to express out there. So that's great to see.
I agree. I mean, when I came on board, I was just super excited about the message. I was like, oh, I was sort of a flipper. But I was an investor / flipper and in NFTs, and I was really drawn towards community-based projects where we might actually make a difference in the world, or at least in this Web3 world. And so that was where I came from personally. And so when I had the opportunity to join the Expressions and Amberfi team, I jumped at it. I was like, absolutely, we need a place where underrepresented folks have a chance to have a voice and to be heard and to be highlighted and showcased, and to find like-minded individuals who want to support and amplify those kind of voices. That's the thing that's super exciting to me.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's exciting. Also, it's good to have someone like yourself curating this, because I read an article where art creators in the real world are not yet here in the Web3 NFT space. And before I'm like, oh, why do I need a curator? But there's just so much out there, and there's so much, messaging that could be false even, right? We need someone or a company to kind of filter that, especially in Web3, where a lot of people can take advantage. Awesome. So it was great to have you on here. What's a meaningful contribution that listeners can make? Is it just to purchase the NFT artwork through the marketplace?
For sure. I mean, we would love for folks to come to expressions.com and just basically give us your email address, because then we'll send out alerts as the sale, as we launch, with just information about, setting up a profile, getting verified, especially if you want to use a credit card to purchase. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter. Those are the things that will definitely help. But we really, as far as the support goes, we need people who want to buy the art that we're showing. That's really, how you support these amazing artists, especially during our Genesis drop that are from the Caribbean, like all over the Caribbean. And some of the art, like I want to collect, I'm going to collect a fair amount of it. Just because some of it's so insanely beautiful and like nothing else I've seen in NFTs. So I think that is the best way to support us and to support underrepresented artists.
Definitely. I've definitely bought enough profile pictures and meme arts out there. I'm going to browse through the website, which I'm surprised. You guys own expressions.com.
I know. Website. Go figure.
Okay. That must have cost a pretty penny or something that you've already owned. But yeah, I'll put all the links down below so that, listeners can go look at the art, which I'm sure is amazing. I looked at some already, but I'm going to do a deeper dive and make sure to connect with you guys.
Yeah, well, so a lot of that art is not on our website yet. You can mostly see it on Twitter. So our marketplace will not go live until May 1st.
May 1st, okay.
Only on May 1st will you be able to actually see the art.
Okay. So the listeners here, they're actually going to listen to this next week. So you have to wait until May 1st. But hop on Twitter. I'll put all the links down so that you guys can have an advanced sneak peek and look at it. And then May 1st, it'll be out.
Awesome.
Awesome, Susan. Well, it was amazing having you on. I know it's early on, Web3 stage. So, it'll be great to have you back after a year to see, those impacts that might have been made with the artists and even, their surroundings and their environment. And, hopefully showcase, new and upcoming, like you said, music videos, whatever it may be that you guys are working on. So I'm super excited to have you back and kind of see some of the progressions.
Thank you so much, Joe. I really appreciate you taking the time to get to know me and Expressions Marketplace.
Yes, you're the person to talk to. You are the intersection of all things, with within the community and the company. So you're the perfect person to ask all these questions. Awesome. Thank you, Sue, so much for jumping on.
All right. Thanks, Joe. Take care.